This episode of the Fiction Writers Podcast is brought to you by How to Write a Novel That Sells. Do you dream of writing a best-selling fiction novel? With the right tools, you could get there sooner than you think. Visit www.howtowriteanovelthatsells.com and unlock the secrets to writing compelling fiction taught by international best-selling author Lana McAra. Welcome to the Fiction Writers Podcast with Lana McAra, where you will discover tips, tricks, and ideas for fiction that is #unputdownable. Here you'll find new energy, new perspectives, new resources, and new ideas that will spark your creativity into a blaze of brilliance. It's easier than you think. Be sure you visit our website at www.fictionwriterspodcast.com. While you're there, subscribe to us via your favorite network. Now, get out your notebook, tune in, and let's get started.
My name is Lana McAra, and welcome to the Fiction Writers Podcast, tips, tricks, and ideas for fiction that is #unputdownable. Today, I'm delighted to welcome as my guest, Jack Lawrence. Jack started his professional career in the mental health field. After selling his practice, he found himself at a crossroad and decided to write a mystery novel for fun. That's a common story I've heard before. Write a mystery novel for fun. Since then, he has written 4 bestsellers and won the Book Fest Award with his debut novel, Bloodthorn. His next thriller, Through the Ages, releases this August. Welcome, Jack.
Thank you.
I had a conversation with you shortly, and I just had to get you on the podcast because everyone is interested in hearing about stories of people who've been published and been successful. There are so many writers that are doing a really good job and working hard, but they just don't seem to be able to hit the right place at the right time. Mm-hmm. So what would you say is the most difficult part about the writing process?
I think for me, it's patience, right? Knowing that it's going to take time to not just write the novel, but being diligent through the editing process and not trying to rush it just to get a book out. You want to make sure that it's as well crafted as it can be. And then once it is ready to get out there, how you're going to present it to the world and get it into the hands of readers. I know a lot of people kind of throw it up on Amazon and hope people stumble across it. You have to be pretty active in pushing and marketing your work because there's so many books on Amazon that unless you're doing that, nobody's really going to find it. And I think part of the struggle is 1, the patience, and then 2, feeling comfortable enough to put yourself out there and really sell yourself and your work.
Yes, when you don't know what the outcome's going to be.
Right.
You're just kind of playing in the dark because you're not sure. Yeah. So how did you keep going?
Really, it was just because of success. When I wrote Bloodthorn, it was kind of a one-off. It was just something to do to pass time. And I thought if one person happened to stumble across it and thought it was okay, that would have been a major accomplishment. And once, 1 or 2 independent bookstores picked it up and it started selling and hit a bestseller list and then won the award. It really pushed me to write the second book in the series and similar results there. And so I just kept going with it.
Where did you get your understanding of fiction craft? Did you take a class or reading fiction?
Mostly reading. And then I had read Stephen King's On Writing many years ago, way back early high school. In undergrad, before I decided on psychology, I took a creative writing, wasn't really a course, but kind of like a seminar type thing just to get the credit. So I kind of built on that, but a lot of Bloodthorn initially was just writing the way that I thought a book was written based on, what I've seen in other fiction novels, and then let my editor tell me how badly I was screwing it up and learn from each round of edits on the proper way of doing it.
Yes, that is such a good point. I really learned to be a professional writer because I had a good editor.
Mm-hmm.
And whenever she sent me back changes, I was looking at those changes like, why did they, what was this changed for? Why was it changed? To learn and learn and learn. Yeah. So good for you for digging in there.
Oh, yeah.
It is definitely a learning process because you don't know what you don't know.
Absolutely.
So,
I think a big part of that is, putting your pride aside, recognizing that the first draft isn't going to be perfect. And there are going to be a lot of things that need to be changed or made different, and being okay with that. I think my time in academia helped with that a lot because of, being corrected on research studies or always being a student and wanting to learn and better myself. So if an editor or a beta reader or whoever tells me that something is off and it needs to be fixed, then I'm more than happy to do so.
yes, exactly. As a professional editor myself now, I'm on the other side of the equation.
Mm-hmm.
When a writer wants to argue a point, that's a real red flag.
Yeah.
Because you're in the story, you're in the creativity.
Mm-hmm.
But I hire editors myself, even though I am one, because we don't look at our work with the same objectivity as someone else would do. And so it's super important to pay attention to feedback and take the feedback. People have a good heart to help. They want to help you. They're not trying to hurt you in any way. Right. That is a good point. And that also, to me, from where I am in this equation, speaks to why you've been successful.
Yeah, I think so too. I follow a lot of other indie authors, and they get very, very hurt. They take it very personal when an editor makes a comment or a reader doesn't like something. And to me, again, I think my time in therapy and learning not to take anything somebody says personally helps me with that. But also in wanting to learn from it, like what did they not like as a reader or an editor or whoever makes the comment, and being willing to change that the next time, I think goes a long way. And I agree. I think that's helped me not just grow, but makes me a better writer for the reader because I'm listening to the comments and I'm making the changes if they suggest them.
Yes, right. Because we write for the reader, not really for ourselves.
Right.
Yes.
Yeah, the first draft is for you and everything after that is for them.
Yeah. The first draft, I always tell my students, just keep writing, just get it out there.
Yeah.
And you can take all the rabbit trails you want and have all the fun you want the first draft around, and then you got to get down to work.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So how do you find your beta readers?
Initially I started off with like Fiverr and Upwork. I would just, post it on there and hire a few. They're usually pretty cheap, like under $20 each. And then as I started having more success, I would say around the third book, and certainly through the ashes, I would go to actual readers. I would post on my social media and have people volunteer. I would still use some of the people that I had paid previously, but I'm using a lot more actual readers now and getting take from people who would potentially buy the book.
Yes. Am I saying this correctly? You're choosing readers who would be representative of your people that would be your buyers eventually.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, that's a good point because I know a lot of people that will just take their aunt and their mother and those people are not representative of the actual buyers.
Yeah. And at the end of the day, they want to protect your feelings a little bit, so even though they're going to maybe be honest and tell you where it could improve, they're not going to tear it apart on you.
Yes. Somebody that gives you actual feedback thinking, thoughtful comments and not just, oh, it was great.
Yeah.
I got so frustrated at the beginning.
Yeah. Everybody tells you it's the next great American novel, and then you get in the hands of a real reader and they're like,
Right. Because that it's great. Response doesn't really help you improve at all.
Right.
Now I was looking for feedback.
Tell me the things that you didn't like.
Yeah, tell me what you didn't like. Exactly. So did you are you independently published or with a publisher? You are.
Yes.
What
Oh, go ahead.
what made that decision?
Basically just my kind of process of Bloodthorn, not really expecting it to do anything and just having it as a hobby. I never intended to submit it or anything like that. And one of the first bookstores that had picked it up, they were selling out very quickly. It's almost as soon as they were hitting shelves, people were buying them. So I, quickly wrote the second book in the series, and then I wrote a standalone novel. And so it's kind of just been a very rapid process. I wrote 4 books last year. And so I hadn't really had time to, look for publishers and things like that. But I did submit Bloodthorn after it had been a bestseller and won an award. And ultimately they decided not to go with it, but it is something that now I'm starting to consider more. And I think the book that I just finished writing yesterday, actually, once it's done, edited and revised and everything, that one will probably be one that I send out to publishers and agents.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so that you actually went the opposite of self-publishing first. I started out with traditional publishing and I am now going independent or hybrid. Hybrid is really my favorite, but yes. Having your rights to your material is a part of that, but it's not all of that. And I do honor traditional publishing. They do have distribution.
Yeah.
They have a wider scope.
And I think the way the climate has really changed impacts that as well. Because I have heard from the one publisher I sent to and other writers that a lot of them wanted to have a certain following before they'll really entertain the idea anyway. So I think it kind of pushes people towards independent first. And yeah, I love independent publishing. It's just the headache. A lot of headaches would be taken away with a publisher. I don't have to worry about formatting. I don't have to worry about all the marketing and anything. Everything they could do rather than me having to hire 2 editors. So some headaches will be resolved by a traditional publisher for sure.
True. They've got their staff. They've got their cover artists and all this and testing what kind of covers are selling and all that. They know all those things. So yes, getting into independent was a learning process for me because I had never had to think about covers before. I was always taken care of. So yeah, there's a lot to consider. And even now I'm considering whether to do self-fulfillment or get a book fulfillment company. How many books will I sell? Will it be worth it to get all the money and do the fulfillment myself, or to pay a fulfillment company a percentage for them to, do that? So it's a business decision, isn't it?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Once you're an independent author, you realize that you're essentially now starting a new business. So I sold my practice and thought that, this would be a fun hobby. And now it's kind of, I went from one business to a whole nother one.
Yes, it is a business. And even traditionally published, it's still a business.
Yeah.
Because you have to do a lot of your own marketing, getting out there and interacting with readers, and your branding has got to go on and all of those things. And that's all business talk.
Yep.
Yeah. Absolutely. So how do you grow your readership?
Engagement mostly. So when I was in the mental health field, I focused primarily on systemic therapy. So everything was very heavily based on connection and relationships. And so I don't do a whole lot of online marketing. I do obviously ads and engage on social media and stuff, but a big part of it is, like I said, going to bookstores and talking to owners, meeting with readers at events. If I see somebody reading a book that's within my genre, I'll go up to them, start talking to them, maybe mention something about my book and give them a bookmark. And a lot of it is also getting to know the person, making it a personal conversation and not just a advertisement, asking what they enjoy about reading, what got them into reading, what they look for in a book, ask about their family and hobbies, really make it a real connection with them so that they're not just buying a book or doing something to be nice, they're feeling a real connection with me, right? And then even if they don't like it or it's not within their genre, more often than not, they'll take it, take a bookmark or something so that then they pass it on to somebody who they think will enjoy it, rather than, just kind of, oh no, not interested in walking away. So for me, that's the biggest thing, is making real tangible connections with people, rather than just being a button on the internet.
That's such a good point. I interviewed an author named Lee Lincoln on the podcast. So if you're listening and you haven't heard Lee Lincoln, her interview, go over and listen to Lee Lincoln. And that's exactly what she said. She said that whenever she's in public, she's watching people, she goes up and talks to people. Mm-hmm. She loves coffee shops. I don't drink coffee. So that's not my deal. Right. She loves coffee shops, and she'll start a conversation with people in the coffee shops and those kind of things. So being personable. Mm-hmm. And I think one problem that a lot of writers have is we are naturally shy. We're used to being in the background. So walking up to somebody and talking to them. Now, as a therapist, you had to get over that, right?
Yeah, I'm definitely an introvert by nature, but I learned quickly how to flip that switch. So when I need to be, book signing or in therapy or whatever, it's become second nature to just be able to flip that switch. And then when it's done and, I don't need to be engaged anymore, I can flip it off and go into a dark corner somewhere and recharge my batteries.
Yes. And the same is true for me. I'm very much an introvert until I'm on stage.
Yeah.
So let's talk a little bit about your experience as a therapist. Has that helped you create your characters for your book?
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's given me a little bit of insight into the human condition. I think one of the things that I hear a lot from readers on what makes my books and my characters stand out is, number one, the relationships. Like I said, as a systemic therapist, relationships were everything. And so in my stories, the relationships and the connections are just as much part of the story as the plot, almost like subplots in a way. But also being in a room with somebody who is scared, and you have to kind of carry those emotions for them. And you see time and time again, the emotions of hurt and fear, abandonment, all people's darkest emotions. And you see it as it's happening. It's a lot easier to describe their feelings, the sensations, how they perceive things in the room, how time is moving for them, right? And so it makes it a lot more realistic for the readers compared to somebody who maybe is offhandedly experienced or does some reading about what it's like. When your career is kind of based on carrying those emotions with people, it gives it a whole new life. And so the descriptions and the relationships in my books are things that readers comment frequently about being something that makes them stand out for them.
Yes. That is such an advantage. Mm-hmm. Really, when you know how to key into people's responses, so you understand what's happening, inside of them, then you can turn that into some pretty great character descriptions and character development.
Well, a big part of therapy too is metaphors. So we use metaphors all the time in therapy, and so that and writing go hand in hand, that and similar. So I think that helped too to make my descriptions a little bit more vivid.
Yes, yes, absolutely. I heard somebody say recently that a good way to create villains is to go into the DSM-5 and look at
Oh,
the dysfunctions. How do you feel about that?
I think it'd be a little too on the nose, honestly. I think some of the best villains are the ones that you don't expect, or even people who are acting out of emotion, right? Because everybody's been in a position, I think, where they've been so hurt and betrayed that they wanted retribution. And so what better than a character who that's their goal is to feed that betrayal and get justice for themselves. Because yeah, they're a bad guy, but also you kind of relate to them and you almost want to cheer for them, you know. But you got to keep that line between they're still the bad guy. Um, and I think that's better than somebody who maybe is a psychopath and they have no emotion, they have no empathy, they're just bloodthirsty when they're out doing things. So I think it also gets the reader a little bit more invested because they're like, oh crap, I see myself in this person. Like, am I the villain or am I the hero? What's going on?
Yes, yes, I'm laughing because I think those psychopaths are really just found in Marvel comics and
Yeah. Yeah.
those places because most of the time the villain has a reason and they might even think they're doing the right thing.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's actually a plot point in one of my books.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I love it. The nuances between who is quote unquote good and who is quote unquote bad
Mm.
is a muddy line.
Oh yeah.
And the more we can portray that in a book, it doesn't matter what genre, the more the reader gets invested in that. So yes, I love that. I did not major in psychology, but I took enough in college to have one credit less than a minor
Oh,
because I wasn't really interested in writing at that time. I didn't
mhm.
start writing until I was out of college, but I always was so curious about why people acted the way they did.
Yeah.
And I took all the psychology I could get in stuff into my other major, you know. So yeah, yeah, it is so important for a novelist
Mm.
to be a student of the human condition.
Absolutely.
Yes, be able to portray those things. So, what are your plans now? You've got your book done. Is there
Right.
another one already in the works?
Yes. So I finished the book is called The Consultant, is the one that I just finished writing. It's more of a police procedural about a professor of mythology who his wife was murdered 5 years previously, and the police just couldn't figure it out. And so he kind of stepped in. He was a suspect, and he solved his wife's murder. As a result, the past 5 years, he's been working as a consultant on the really strange murders and ones that they just really can't solve. And so he's called in on this one, and it really shows his adjustment, trying to adjust to life after his wife, being a single parent, all of those things, and then of course solving the murder. And then the next one is going to be Thorn, which is the fourth book in the David Thorn series.
Yeah.
So that'll be out sometime early next year.
How long does it take for you to complete a book?
Generally 2 to 3 months. But the consultant, that one really came out. I put 80,000 words down in about 3-ish weeks. So
Wow.
yeah, that one it hit hard, and then the words just it wrote itself. Really, I just kind of had to make sure my fingers moved fast enough.
I know what you mean. I've had those moments when it's 3 o'clock in the morning, my eyes fly open and I dash to the
Yeah, exactly.
there's not a whole lot of sleeping going on during those days.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
But typically, I would say 2.5 to 3 months to get the first draft, and then it's
Mhm.
4 or 5 months or so of editing and revisions.
Yes, the revisions actually take as long as
Yeah.
the first book, first draft. Yeah, for sure. So you have a free gift.
Yeah. So starting at the end of the week until August 26th, the first 10 people to enter the code podcast, all capital letters, will get 40% off of anything in the store on my website, which is Jack Lawrence Writing, WRITING.com.
JackLawrenceWriting.com.
Mhm.
And so you have a store over there, and if someone purchases a book, any particular title or any title?
So they can purchase anything in the store. There's clothing, like coffee cups, wine glasses, or an autographed copy of the book.
Okay.
But it'll
And what
be,
is
the code will be podcast, all caps.
podcast, all caps?
Yeah.
And then what is the gift?
It'll be 45% off of whatever item they order.
45% off. Wow. That's better than wholesale. Wholesale's 40% off.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a great deal. And that link will be in the show notes and on my website, the podcast website. If you want to go over there to fictionwriterspodcast.com, you can click on it there, and that'd be terrific. Anything else you'd like to add before we wind up here, Jack?
Yeah. Thank you for having me on. It was an awesome conversation.
Oh, I enjoyed it. I enjoyed it a lot. Yeah, I always love finding out how other people do things.
Yeah. Yeah. It's really good to find something that might help spice it up and make it a little bit easier.
Yes, absolutely. Well, thank you so much.
Thank you.
And thank you for joining us today. See you next time.
Thank you for tuning into the Fiction Writers Podcast with Lana McAra, where we share tips, tricks, and ideas for fiction that is #unputdownable. Remember to visit our website at www.fictionwriterspodcast.com and enjoy even more great episodes like this one. Again, while you're here, subscribe to us via your favorite network. We look forward to seeing you next time on the Fiction Writers Podcast.